Snacking is my absolute top taboo as far as keeping you in fat storage mode. Nobody talks about this. So this isn't something someone tells you to do. In fact, if you go to a lot of weight loss specialists or fitness specialists, they'll tell you to snack more so that you don't go into starvation mode. I'm not exactly quite sure what they're getting at by this, because they're treating you like your body is a laboratory, and it doesn't work. So in the conditions of a laboratory where there's not all this stimulation and things around, that could potentially work. It's a theory that works in a book, but it is one of my favorite physician philosophers, Martin Fisher, used to say, facts are no more science than the dictionary is literature. So just because this works in the lab doesn't mean that you're a lab, or your body is a lab, or the world is a lab. We have to deal in the real world. In the lab, problems are complicated. In the real world, problems are complex, and the only difference for that is that lots of things affect other things, and we have to just start to look for solutions. So we need to look and say, how did we get the snack attack? How did snacking sneak up on us? Well, those are two great questions, because there was a snack attack, and now snacking has snuck up on us with sort of a double wave. And the first one, snack attack, was by a man called the most despised man in Europe during that time, and that was the Earl of Sandwich. And it was how the sandwich was invented. And the Earl of Sandwich was kind of he was one of the founding members of something called the Hellfire Club. They were just they were just a bad lot to be hanging around with. The bad behavior, lots of drinking, carousing, general immoral debauchery. Debauchery is the perfect word for that. So some people have heard this story, like the Earl of Sandwich. He was playing poker, and he was in these, all-night poker games, and he didn't want to waste time eating while he was, stopping for a meal. He didn't have time for that while he was busy playing poker. So he called for the servants to bring him his meat, which is what he would have eaten in his meal, between two slices of bread, so he wouldn't get grease all over his cards, and he could continue to shove his face and play cards at the same time. Now, when the Earl of Sandwich invented the sandwich wasn't a snack. It was a meal. But we need to understand what a snack actually is and how this snuck up on it, because it's all about convenience and not taking the time out for a meal anymore. So we thought of it as a snack as a meal substitute. But it isn't a meal substitute anymore. It's an eating substitute, and we eat all the time. So let's look at the next big wave, which is when we started to get fat from snacking, really a problem with it, how that snacking snuck up on us. And in America, that time occurred in about the 1970s, when we started to have a big food surplus, particularly of these grains, corn and soybeans and things like that. We have this extra food, and we started subsidizing farmers, so the price of these foods dropped down, and they were very cheap, and that made it start to get, all food started getting a lot cheaper. And then there was this glut of food, because the farmers were being rewarded by growing more than was needed. Well, if you looked at that time, there weren't very many fat people. We had a pretty good distribution of skinny and fat and normal. So what do you do when people are already eating the right amount, but now you have more food? Well, you have to start figuring out a way to get them to eat more often, eat more at each meal. And then we started a really concerted effort of marketing to find out what would make people eat more. And we need to understand that they've gotten better at it in that 50 years since we've started doing that, or a little bit less, is that they have discarded all the things that didn't work to make us eat more, and they're only keeping the ones that make us eat more and adding to them all the time. So now we're snacking all the time because every time of day, anywhere. All these cues are, it's a perfectly appropriate, in fact, desirable time to eat. You need a break. It'll give you more energy. Don't get into starvation mode. Oh, you're on a diet. Well, here's a bar that satisfies all the nutrients that you need. Every message that we get is always about eating. And you know why? Because not eating is free. Eating is cheap. But lots and lots of cheap adds up to pounds on you. And if we were British, it'd be pounds in their pocketbook, but it's dollars. But they actually don't even care that it's dollars. It's pennies, because tons and tons of pennies mean a lot of money. And tons of pennies worth of food mean tons and tons of weight on the American population right now. So that's what we're looking at. That's how snacking snuck up on us. But first, we had to culturally think that it was an okay thing to do. And the first time that happened was the snack attack. And we can blame that Earl of Sandwich, and he should still be the most despised man in history, in my opinion anyway.